Good afternoon. Welcome to Sports Nothing But Sports. I'm Ken Sterling. You know what we're talking about? Sports Nothing But Sports. But first, we're brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry. Dr. Mike O'Neill has been my dentist for the last 26 years. He's always going to be my dentist. I recommend him to you highly. Call him 317-849-2933. Make an appointment today. Let's talk college basketball. Do you know the last time that both Indiana and Purdue played a game that both programs were still active on March 26th? Indiana is going to play tomorrow night at Simon Scott Assembly Hall in the quarterfinals of the NIT. Thursday night, Purdue is going to play in the Sweet 16 against the Tennessee Volunteers. The last time both these programs were still up and running on March 26th, it has never happened. That's unbelievable to me. They are rarely good during the same seasons. And this year, Indiana, I know, they're in the NIT and not the NCAA tournament, but it still counts. There have been times that Purdue has played late into the season in the NIT. There was one time that Indiana and Purdue both played in the NIT final. That was 1979. Indiana won that game, but it wasn't as late as March 26th. It's never happened that both Purdue and Indiana were still active on March 26th. And when Purdue plays on March 28th, that's the latest they will have played a college basketball game in their program's history, to the extent that I can go back and research it. Maybe there were some times, like back in 1932 when they won that mythical national championship, that Purdue played that late, or maybe prior to that. You know, there were times that, hey, let's get the guys together. It was kind of an ad hoc thing, a little lack of organization. They just showed up in West Lafayette or down in Bloomington or up in Chicago or wherever, and they played basketball. I don't know. But back as far as they keep records at basketballreference.com, Indiana and Purdue have both been active on March 26th during the same season exactly 0 times. Did you know that Purdue has shot better than its opponent by 19% or better 3 times? And as you would guess, they have absolutely blitzkrieged all 3 of those opponents. And this is kind of interesting. They've all come late in the season. None came when they played somewhat, sketchy opponents early in the non-conference season, although Purdue played a really robust non-conference schedule this year. Ohio State, they beat by 35, Villanova by 26, Illinois by 17. That game against Villanova, I still can't get over it. Purdue was absolutely fantastic against Villanova. So good against a team who's usually so well coached by the great Jay Wright. But Jay Wright, I'm not sure what he was doing defensively. He didn't take away anything. He didn't take away Harms. He didn't take away Edwards. He didn't take away Klein. And all 3 absolutely beat his ass. I did not understand fronting Harms down low on the post, because all Purdue did when they did that was dump it over the top, Harms catches and flushes. He had 18 points. Carson Edwards, he had 42. That's a lot of scoring on 21 shots. When Carson Edwards is that kind of productive, Purdue virtually impossible to beat. Carson Edwards and Ryan Klein combined for 13 three-pointers. If that happens against Tennessee or anybody else that they play for the rest of this tournament, I'm telling you that Purdue's going to win that game. And if Purdue continues to shoot like that, but shooting like that's really, really difficult, and to do that for 4 more games is going to be damn near impossible. But if they could do that, they're going to win the national championship. I think it's going to be really, really tough to beat Tennessee, because Tennessee is athletic at all 5 spots. They can switch at all 5 spots. Admiral Schofield is really, really good. Williams is really, really good. They have terrific athletes everywhere, and their bench depth is terrific. The thing that I think that Purdue has going for it is kind of like back in 1987, Bob Knight said, there was a game against LSU, and he said, I thought we were out of it. We were down 9 with 4:32 left, and then I looked down at the other bench, and I saw Dale Brown. Matt Painter is going to look down at the other bench. He won't say this, but I will. And he's going to see Rick Barnes. And where Rick Barnes is coaching, you got a chance to win against that team. All right, you saw it yesterday as Tennessee damn near got beat, damn near got swallowed up whole by Iowa. Iowa, at one point in that game, was down 25 points. They came storming back. They took a brief lead. They tied it And then it went to overtime, and then the ceiling kind of caved in on the Hawkeyes. But it shows just how flaky this team is, and it gives Purdue the opportunity to see a team, and they're going to look at tape all week long, a team that is capable of playing basketball at the highest level and then capable 2 minutes later of playing basketball at the absolute lowest level. Purdue is 11-1 when hitting 50% or better. They are 2-4 when opponents hit 50% or better. You can kind of see the writing on the wall there. If they shoot well and keep their opponent from shooting well, they win basketball games. Who'd figure that? Who would think that if you shoot the ball really, really well, and if you restrict your opponent from shooting really, really well, you'd be able to win basketball games? I'm telling you, analyzing basketball, you know what? You can make it as complicated as you want, but I think the simple answer is almost always the correct answer with basketball, especially college basketball. Let's talk about Indiana. They've got that game tomorrow night at Simon Scott Assembly Hall against Wichita State. You got Greg Marshall coming to town. Gee, I hope his wife comes to town too, because I think she's a spitfire. I think she's a character. A lot of fun in post-game press conferences, as we remember from a few years ago during a regional held here in Indianapolis. Indiana has opened as a 5.5-point favorite. We'll see what happens. Wichita State's been playing well. Obviously, they're in the not-so-elite 8 of the NIT. We can't call a quarterfinal game in the NIT the Elite Eight because this is not the Elite Tournament, right? So let's call it what it is. It's a non-Elite Eight, or we can just simply call it the quarterfinals if we like, and that's just fine. We don't know what's going to happen with Romeo Langford, and I continue to admonish people who speculate, especially those in media who speculate about his back, saying that perhaps this is Romeo Langford making a business decision rather than a health-related decision. Shame on you for thinking such a thing. That's not your place. You're not a doctor. You don't know this kid. You haven't sat down with this kid or his physician to figure out what's right and what's wrong and to speculate on whether this kid is playing because it's good for business or good for his health is just absolutely wrong and frankly irresponsible. Romeo Langford, I know him a little bit. I absolutely believe that he'd be playing if he was healthy enough to do it. And whether he plays or not, you know what? This team's playing pretty well right now. And that means that Devontae Green, you're getting more good Devontae than bad Devontae. And that's critical for the Hoosiers because that guy can get you beat and that guy can lift you up. And when he lifts you up, you got a chance to win. Beating Wichita State, I think that's a doable deal. I am much happier playing against Wichita State than playing against the team that Wichita State beat, and that's the Clemson Tigers, because I think Clemson can play a little bit, and they would provide matchup problems that would be an absolute nightmare for your Indiana Hoosiers. Michael Avenatti's been arrested. This story broke about an hour ago. He's the attorney who represented Stormy Daniels, and now he's representing some other guy. And here's what he tweeted a little bit earlier this afternoon. He said, tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, we will be holding a press conference to disclose a major high school/college basketball scandal perpetrated by Nike that we have uncovered. This criminal conduct reaches the highest levels of Nike and involves some of the biggest names in college basketball. About 25 minutes after that, the Associated Press reported that Avenatti had been arrested on extortion and bank and wire fraud charges. And so there you go. Here's a guy who went to Nike according to the criminal charge and said, I need $1.5 million paid directly to this co-conspirator guy who has the information and is represented by Avenatti. And then I need another $15 to $25 million for me and the co-conspirator in order to conduct an investigation at Nike that Nike ostensibly would not want, would they? So Avenatti's one of these guys, one of these bottom-feeding attorneys who is extorting money from others. And this happens in the world of law all the time. And lawyers hate it. Others hate it. The people who are being extorted hate it. Everybody hates it. And so in this instance, finally, this guy is going to be held to task by federal authorities who placed him under arrest. And I think that that's a great thing, ultimately. I hate stories like this. I especially hate stories like this during the NCAA tournament, but I hate stories like this. Let the federal authorities conduct their own investigation and find out where things have gone screwy. We don't need Michael Avenati and this other guy who reportedly is an AAU coach from California, who's also an attorney. We don't need these guys ripping the top off the can of college basketball scandalous behavior. We know it exists. We kind of have a pretty damn good idea of where it exists. You know, the thing that bugs me most, I think, is that it happens during the NCAA basketball tournament. You know what? I know we're all thinking about college basketball right now because of the tournament, and everybody and their brother and their mother and their sister and their aunt and their uncle have filled out brackets, and they're all rooting for people. But I hate it now because during this tournament, college basketball becomes about the game. And that's the thing that we love. We do not like the underbelly stories. You know, in June, July, and August, we talk about them. You have to. But I hate to have this sully an otherwise really interesting college basketball tournament, the NCAA tournament. Like we said earlier, Indiana, Purdue playing later into the season than they ever have simultaneously. This is really a time for the fun of college basketball, not the time of scandals for college basketball. Michael Avenati, you could tell when you looked at the guy on TV, and I know this is all alleged this and alleged that, but this guy, you knew this was a bad guy, didn't you? Rob Gronkowski has decided to retire, one of the great tight ends of all time, as we become a little bit more positionless in offensive football. I think it's kind of unfair to call Gronkowski like a prototypical tight end, but you know what? He's still a tight end, and he's one of the most offensively dangerous tight ends of all time. So we'll give him the credit. He's one of the best tight ends ever. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Fame guy. He's 29 years old right now. That's way too young to retire. And I think we're going to figure that out on about August 15th when he decides, you know what, if I get in a little bit of shape, I can still go to the Patriots and start. I think that he's going to continue his career. He just thinks it's in his best interest right now as he continues to deal with aches and pains and injuries. It's in his best interest to call it quits. This is not a call it quits type guy. This is a guy who wants to play. He loves to play, and I think he's going to continue to play. We'll just see when he makes that decision. And I want to mention the people, great people at Pacers Care. Wonderful people there. And that's Kelly Tolles and Richie, and you've just got a bunch of the best people you're ever going to hear from in your life, and some of the best people that this community has to offer. It's those in need. And Indianapolis has some people who are in need, and a family of those people who are in need, they're going to be helped. They're going to be surprised really almost as we speak. They're going to show up at their home on the northwest side of Indianapolis at about 3:15, and they're going to have a whole new house full of furniture from Kittles and the people from Pacers Cares, and isn't that wonderful? And it is. And thanks to those people. Kelly is so generous in offering us an opportunity to come and volunteer and do some things, whether it's read like a pro or move furniture into somebody's house, move some furniture out of somebody's house. They're just terrific about vetting those who are in need, and they make us feel better for our ability to come in and do something nice for somebody without having, the tough part of helping people out. It's not the helping part. It's not the lifting and all that kind of thing. It's not about the work. What it's about is finding the people who are worthy of that kind of help, those people who are really in need. And Pacers Cares and Kelly and Richie, they do such a wonderful job of that. And I'm so thankful to them for engaging me as a person who gets to kind of come in on the back end and do all the stuff that makes people feel good. That it makes me feel good. I'll tell you what, it makes us feel better than I think those people who are helped. And so that's a lot of fun. And I couldn't be more appreciative to Kelly and Richie for reaching out periodically and asking if I'd like to be a part of something like this. It's very, very nice of them. One of the reasons why this is such a terrific city, the sports franchises here really take seriously, and the people at Pacers Sports and Entertainment at the very top of the list. They do so many good things for so many others, and it's from a really, really good place. It is part of their business plan, and it's part of their business model, but it's also from a place in their heart where they just want to help people, and they take very seriously that charge, and I couldn't be happier to be a part of it whenever they shoot me an email and say, hey, would you like to do X, Y, or Z? I always say yes to those guys, and we always have a terrific time. They fed us, and we got T-shirts, and it was nice, and so the people on the Northwest Side at the house where we worked this morning, they're going to be very, very pleased with what's happened for them and by the great people at Pacers Sports and Entertainment. Tomorrow, we're going to preview the Hoosiers, Shockers. Tomorrow night, Simon Scott Assembly Hall, 7 o'clock. We'll talk to you about that on Breakfast with Kent. 8 o'clock tomorrow morning on Facebook Live and on Periscope. And then tomorrow afternoon at 3. Sports, nothing but sports, no exceptions with Kent Sterling.